if you caught any of President Biden's speech, this was his first speech as president to the UN General Assembly, you might be scratching your head.
It doesn't match reality. I mean, look, we've got two permanent members of the Security Council, the United States and France, who currently have no ambassadors in each other's country. France has withdrawn their ambassador because of the way that they've been treated by the Biden team. That wasn't even mentioned. I mean, this is the UN Security Council is everything at the UN. Two members are fighting, and Biden didn't even mention it. I mean, this was just a bunch of lingo regurgitated, and I think everybody in that room loved it because they don't face reality either. They don't live in the real world. It's a bunch of diplomats.
The human rights abuses. I could add to that in the West Bank and Gaza, pastors and others thrown off the tops of buildings. We're still giving them aid. The Chinese. Genocide. Yep, genocide. So why would you not address the human rights issues?
I don't understand it. It's global talk. It's what the UN wants. You don't address it because it makes people uncomfortable in that situation. We've talked about this before. Joe Biden maximizes consensus. He wants the world to like him. And when you go into that room, you got to talk in these, big, lofty phrases. You can't point out countries that are a problem.
I stand here today for the first time in 20 years with the United States not at war. We've turned the page. All the unmatched strength, energy, and commitment, will, and resources of our nation are now fully and squarely focused on what's ahead of us, not what was behind.
He doesn't talk about the fact that the war ended and it looked like we lost. It looked like all the gains that were made against terrorism, his top advisors are telling us the terrorists are coming back from Al-Qaeda. They're going to reconstitute. You've got new ISIS there.
He forgets that the bad guys get to play their cards too. There are still Americans left behind. There's still a massive amount of American equipment behind. We know that this chaotic departure that didn't have to be, we'd left them a plan for the orderly transition, the orderly withdrawal of Americans with a firm set of conditions behind it. They ripped it up to create an arbitrary deadline on September 11th. We know that the net result of this was 13 American lives lost and chaos inside of that country that almost certainly will result in greater risk that we're attacked from that place someday.
We may not be at a bullets war where we've got, ammunition going off and troops being deployed. But let's be realistic. We've got a major crisis with Iran. We've got a major crisis with China. Russia's certainly rattling their sabers. And the approach, it appears to me, Rick, is that this administration basically says, well, we actually don't have troops deployed, thus we're not in battle.
That's not the truth either. I don't want to go into great details about our intelligence capabilities, but the reality is that we do. And he should know that. He was not properly briefed. And whoever signed off on that phrase, I think, has their head in the sand.
Let's go through the foreign policy issues. We had a botched, horrible withdrawal from Afghanistan. Terrible. I mean, disastrous. 13 Marines killed, 7 kids. This is on the exit. 2 aid workers. We've got 12,000 people under a bridge in Del Rio, Texas. Now, 3,000 of them were deported yesterday. So now we're doing mass deportations. Then we entered into a major renegotiation or a defense deal with the UK and Australia by snubbing France so that France withdraws its ambassador. This is not under Donald Trump. This is under Joe Biden. America is back. Leadership. Macron pulls his ambassador because we didn't diplomatically handle it appropriately. He wants to get back into the Iran nuclear deal. He canceled the Keystone Pipeline, so we're more responsible now and more reliant on overseas energy sources. Refuses to sanction the company that's in charge of building Russia's NORAD 2 gas line. And he extended the New START treaty with Russia for 5 years, which allows Russia to continue to build more nuclear weapons. And, of course, rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. Those are the accomplishments in the first 9 months.
He did get applause at the end, even though we know our NATO allies are not happy with us. Do you think, Rick, the world was applauding at the UN because they like this position of America? They like America in this spot where we look weak, we look like we need everybody's help, we're going to throw out all the money, make friends again by giving out money. Even though diplomatically we've got mistake after mistake piling up, they'd still rather have that America than a strong one.
They're not necessarily cheering for a weak America, even though we know they are. They would just say, we want consensus. We want everybody to be equal. And what I've always said when I was at the UN is people are equal. Countries are not equal. And we need to not shy away from that. There's only one country at the United Nations that gets in trouble for pushing its own agenda, and that's the United States. When you have negotiations in the Security Council, there's 14 countries pushing what's best for them. The Germans push in a phrase or a statement from the UN, what is best for Germany? And everybody at the UN knows that that's the case. And the United States should be able to do that too, but we don't. We apologize on the world stage.
So what we saw was a speech from President Biden that was so just out of touch with reality. It's like he didn't talk about China. He didn't talk about Russia by name. He didn't talk about these specific issues of problems. And the Chinese leader just phoned in via taped message.
Right.
So it is a different time at the UN, but also shows. I get with COVID, but still, you would think if this was a time when you were going to try to bring the world together, they're not coming to the table, and they're applauding. And I really do believe, as we talked about with Rick, they applaud at the end. Not because they like the decisions he made, like with Afghanistan, but because America's weaker now.